Welcome to episode 188 of Missing Pieces, my weekly audio journal where I talk about what I'm up to and what I'm into. This week's episode picks up right where last week's left off, which had me with a broken foot from the day before and an appointment to go see an orthopedic specialist. And something that I want to say about this appointment that I'm not sure if I mentioned last week was it was actually scheduled for the following Tuesday, which I thought was kind of wild. Like, imagine having a broken bone and they're like, yeah, we'll get you in about 5 days. So I was really wanting some resolution with this, and I pleaded with them to squeeze me in on that Friday. I said, I'm literally home with nothing to do, and I can come in at any time and I can be there in like 15 minutes. So she's like, okay, I'll make a note of that. And luckily they called me back and said, we can get you in today at 2:20, which just happened to be after I was recording this. So that was like absolutely perfect. So I ended up going to this appointment, and the first thing that the orthopedic specialist tells me as I go in there, which makes the whole previous part of this even crazier, is that they need to do x-rays again to see if I damaged my foot any further by walking on it, which kind of made me angry, to say the least, because no one had given me any kind of advice or assistance on this whatsoever. Like, I went to see my regular doctor the day before, and she's like, yeah, that's swollen. It's not looking good. Let's send you over to another place to get x-rays. This is like a demonstration of the inefficiency of our system, and it just keeps getting worse and worse at every level. So, okay, great. You can't tell just by looking at it. Let's go over and get some x-rays and see. So I get the x-rays on Thursday, the day before all of this is happening and before the last episode. And they get the results, and obviously they can see that I have a broken bone, but they aren't allowed to tell me that I have a broken bone because they're not legally or medically able to do so. So they just send me out of there, walking out of there on my broken foot with just questions. And then I find out later, after I download the hospital's app, that I can actually see like what their assessment was. And then my doctor calls me shortly after to tell me again like what the news is. So that was Thursday night, and all of that happened that day. Again, the doctor didn't say anything about walking on it, not walking on it. I had no equipment. They didn't give me any kind of boot, crutches, anything like that when I left her place or the x-ray place. So I'm left over I guess, to just exist. But then I walk into the orthopedic place the next day, and they're telling me like, oh, you shouldn't have been walking. And it's just like, what am I supposed to do? Like, the system is so broken. So they do the x-rays. I will stop my rant here. They do the x-rays. They find out that it's really not gotten worse, which is a good thing. But as he's looking at it, he's like, I'm not exactly sure if we're going to need to do surgery on this or if it'll just kind of heal itself together, because the bone was very close to where it should be. So he steps out for a moment to go discuss it with the foot expert, and then he comes back to give me the good news, which is that they don't need to do surgery or put pins or do any of that stuff to it. I just need to wear a boot for the next 6 weeks. So they provide me that boot, and then I walk out in my boot, which I'll say made a huge difference in my walking ability, because I was literally just hobbling. Like, it was painful to walk on it. And the boot helped, but the conversation I had with him was like, his thoughts on it were that when they did the x-rays, this is what should have happened in a perfect world. I mean, ideally, they would just tell you at that very moment that, hey, you've got a broken bone. Let's get you a boot or crutches or anything else that you need, because the medical place is right next door to them, which is a good thing, because it's like, we find out you have a broken bone, this is how you can walk out of here with your crutches. But they can't do it because of, I'm sure somebody sued or something happened along the way where they either told someone they had a broken bone or didn't tell them they didn't have a broken bone, and then it was wrong, and like, it's just a mess, just like our whole medical system is. And that's what I'm hearing from all the people that are commenting from other countries, kind of pointing out the problems that I'm telling you now. What he said should have happened in an ideal world is that I would have went to see my doctor. Obviously, they can't do x-rays there, so they send me over to the hospital for the x-rays. But what should have happened then is, as soon as those people, the x-ray technicians, saw that I had a broken bone, they should have told me to sit tight for a minute while they contacted my doctor to say, hey, this is what we're seeing. And then before I left there, they should have given me a boot and or crutches that I could leave there on until I could go see an orthopedic specialist, even if it was 5 days later, to figure out what our next step is. Instead, it's just a big question mark, and you're walking around on a broken bone. And it's just boggles my mind that it's like that. Now, imagine if you were to go to the emergency room. Like, I don't think if you broke your femur, they would put you through the runaround like that. If you went to the emergency room, all of this would happen on the spot. You would get it looked at, treated, everything would happen. But being that this wasn't necessarily an emergency, and I certainly don't want to go to the emergency room for this, because that would probably be like $2,500 just to do what I did. I have no idea what all this is going to cost me. Which, speaking of, my wife's a teacher, has pretty good health insurance, but pretty good health insurance these days isn't great at all. We have a high deductible plan with a health savings account, which means that every single year, this is kind of getting off tangent, but since I'm on this rant, just let me go. Every single year, our family needs to meet a deductible of about $4,000, I believe. So we pay money every paycheck for health insurance. And maybe you're probably in this boat too if you're listening to this from the US. But if you're not, this could be enlightening. Every paycheck, Cody pays money for our health insurance for our family. Great. If anything happens, though, say I go and break my foot and I go to the doctor for the first time, it's January 1st or any time during the year for that matter, I have to pay the first $4,000 of expenses before the medical insurance kicks in. So say this whole thing costs, let's just make it $1,000 just to keep it all easy. Between all the appointments, the x-rays, the boot, the crutches, all that stuff, I have to pay for it out of pocket. So it's as though I don't even have health insurance at all. It's only when you have a catastrophic injury that the health insurance kicks in, because then what happens is the next year, say all this happens, say in the end of November and December, the next year it starts all over again. So every year, if you're a relatively healthy person that very rarely has any issues, you're essentially funding your own health costs or healthcare costs, even though you're paying every single month or every paycheck to have health insurance. And it's just such a terrible system. Like, could I make that any clearer? Every part of this system is awful. Like, if you're paying for health insurance, I should be able to walk in there just like if you have a library card and be like, hey, here's my problem. Here, I want a book. And they're like, okay, here's your book. Here's your fix. And you should be able to walk out of there, at least in my mind. And maybe everything would be way more expensive. Maybe someday we'll have some type of universal healthcare system where, regardless of your employment status or your wealth, you should be able to go in, and if you have a problem, you should be able to get it treated. That's just my thoughts on it. I'm sure there's issues with that, but my thoughts on it are, if all these other countries have figured it out, why can't we? And I think we all know the true answer to that is that there's a lot of money being made by people in the middle of that, and those people would like to continue making money. Therefore, they're going to stop us from anyone being benefited by a system like that, because that gets in the way of money making. And that, unfortunately, is how healthcare and politics works. Thank you for attending my TED Talk. But anyways, that's just moderately related to all the things that I went through, which in my mind, like outside of that, like that is what it is. But the way that this system works, even outside of having universal health care or health coverage or whatever, I just feel like the system is so inefficient. The way that I was treated in there, like treated in the actual term of being treated, they all were very pleasant and professional, but what a broken system. To break your foot on a Thursday, to get into your doctor, have x-rays, and then they put you off until Tuesday, only to go in to find out that you might have done an incredible amount of damage by continuing to walk on it. And then anyways, it just goes to show you again, if you want something in this world, you got to fight for it, because had I not fought to get in there last Friday, I would have went in on Tuesday after all those days of me kind of hobbling around on this. And maybe it would have been worse. Maybe that would have required me to have surgery, which would have been the worst case scenario. Can you imagine if I had gone Friday, Saturday, Sunday, Monday, just kind of getting around, not walking or running marathons or anything, but just like being on my foot and making my way around the house could have hurt me to the point where I would actually need to go from wearing a boot for 6 weeks, which is my current status, to then needing surgery on my foot, all because the system is broken. That would have been frustrating, and there would have been no recourse for me at all. Like, it is what it is. So yeah, anyways, beyond all of my ranting and frustration, and I'm sure some of you out there probably have medical stories similar to this. Maybe you have the opposite. Maybe you live somewhere else and you're like, I broke a bone. I went in, got it fixed. They didn't charge me anything. I walked out the same day and all was good. But we don't all live in perfect worlds, right? But I'm getting fixed up here. I'm wearing my boot. It's very limiting. and it's very frustrating being reliant on other people. I'm a very independent person, and I like to get a lot of things done and do a lot of stuff. And this week was the exact opposite of that. This was like my lost week. Obviously, you guys know that I do this thing called No Zero Days where I share all the things I'm doing day to day. That kind of came to a halt this week because it's like I'm not really doing anything. And I really mean that, because it's like just moving around the house is kind of a pain to do, literally and figuratively. Going up and down the stairs takes me a long time. Probably my most exciting thing, if I were to make a No Zero Days video this week, it would have been assembling a shower chair. Because you're not ideally supposed to be standing on this. Like, this boot's giving me a lot of cushion on my foot as I'm putting my weight on it. And getting in the shower was an obstacle, so we ended up buying a shower chair. I'm now prepping for my 80-year-old life. So we have like one of the little hand things that comes down, and like that's how I get a shower these days. You really take a lot for granted. That's one thing that I've learned this week. You should never take your health for granted, because when even something little silly like this, like breaking a bone in your foot, can have all these impacts on you, and it sucks. So I'm wearing this boot even when I sleep. I'm supposed to wear the boot because the thing is, like, not only minimizing the weight that I'm putting down with like having that extra cushion, but they don't want my foot moving up and down. Like, imagine your leg being the top of an L and your foot being the bottom part of it, like a capital L. They don't want that L kind of the angle of that L closing in on itself. I'm trying to describe this in a way that people that are listening could understand it. You don't want that L becoming closer to itself or moving out, so it needs stabilize and it needs to heal that way. And I'm listening to the doctor because I don't want to go back in 3 weeks, which is when my next appointment is, right before Christmas, which I should say I'm going to be booted up for Christmas. I don't want to go back and they're like, yeah, this isn't healing, we need to have surgery. And I don't want that, because that puts us back even further. Because as it stands right now, this isn't such a bad thing. I'm looking at 6 weeks for this to heal, and this happened on the last day of November. So by mid-January, like, it does suck it's going to be on there through the holidays, but what a great time to be injured, because it's cold outside. There's not much to do anyway. So it's a great time to be booted. And I've kind of taken this and made an opportunity out of it, a couple actually, which I'll start with the Greg's World side of things, because obviously you guys, some of you subscribe to my other channels too, and you're wondering like, hey, are you gonna have any content? And I will, because we did something earlier this year that is actually paying off now. I had a little trick up my sleeve. Believe it or not, we went to Disney World back in May of 2023. At the time, I didn't make any videos on this because, to be very honest with you, I didn't want to be judged by the world. We had just come off our Punta Cana trip, and we were on the cusp of going to Italy, and we got this really good deal to go to Disney, because apparently no one goes in May. It's not a great time. So Cody and I debated on it at the time, and we were like, should we do this? And I was like, you know what? This is our year. We're never going to have this opportunity again to go during this time. Clark's never going to be this age again. And we decided to pull the trigger, even though we'd already been to Disney twice. That was another thing that led to me kind of not wanting to share that with the world at the time, because we had already gone to Disney twice. We were doing all this traveling, and I just didn't want the judgment of people. Believe it or not, when you share yourself and your existence on the internet, people judge you, and it's perfectly normal and it's perfectly natural, but it hurts sometimes. So at the time I was just like, okay, let's just go. Let's just enjoy this. Of course, I'm going to film it and record it for to have the memories and stuff. But maybe someday when things are boring, like over the winter time, and I'm not doing anything else, I'll start to edit these videos and get them out and uploaded. Well, when you know it, I got this gift of having a broken bone, and I went through and I had all the footage. It's been sitting on my laptop forever, taking up an incredible amount of hard drive space. And I was like, you know what? This is the time. This is the time to start editing this and start exporting it. So I ended up doing just that. I got the first video edited. It was 2 hours of footage. It was about 6 days, 12 hours of footage thereabouts, along with some like additional GoPro footage of swimming and water stuff. So over the next 12 days, I'm going to upload these 6 videos, one coming out every other day. The first one turned out to be about 26 minutes, and it's pretty it's pretty darn cool. And I'm like actually excited about having this come out and for people to enjoy it while I'm kind of laid up and down and out, if you will. So that'll be kind of fun to do. We'll go from breaking my foot to traveling to Disney World for like people watching. I did make it clear like this was earlier in the year, and you can kind of tell because it's nice outside when we leave and we're in shorts and t-shirts. Those were the days. But yeah, I feel like the judgment won't be as severe now. It might still be there. But it's been so long since we've done anything or gone anywhere other than Aquatopia a week or two ago that that I feel like we won't get the wrath of the internet. Although I think maybe that was overblown. Our people that watch us are very supportive, but I have seen, and I think a lot of the times that I've seen hate towards us, particularly towards like how we treat Clarkman, as to say spoiling him. I think a lot of it comes from a place of jealousy with people. And I don't say that to be like feel like I'm better than anyone, because I'm certainly not. But a lot of times people want what we have or wish they had what we had, or specifically what Clarkman has, which I think is a nice, loving family that cares for him and treats him the way that he should be treated. And, you know, we obviously, I love spoiling him. He's my only son, and I would do anything for him. And sometimes that comes through not only in like the love that we share, which isn't nearly as, I think, visible on videos, but in physical things like Lego sets or toys or shopping or whatever that is. But my thoughts on it as a parent is, if you have the means, why wouldn't you give your child what you can, as long as they don't act spoiled? Because being spoiled with things is very different than acting spoiled. To be entitled, or to be like to feel like you need something, or to beg or to throw tantrums, that to me is being spoiled, and Clark has never been that. I don't feel the need that I really need to defend myself on these things, because it's just not something that I feel. But when the comments come through, and I think it's usually from kids, that's when it kind of gets you a little bit. So, you know, you just kind of get in your head a little bit with a lot of these things. And I think that's where I was with this Disney World trip, with how things were going, because last year it really did seem like we were doing a lot, and we were, but it was our bucket list year, and it was an opportunity that we had, and I wouldn't give it back for anything. It was an incredible experience that I'll remember forever, all of it, including this trip. So I will say that this is one cool thing of delaying the footage and having it come out later, or to edit it later. Usually I do it like right when we get back, and it's all these things are very fresh in my mind, and I'm like, oh yeah, that was cool. Now it's like I'm reviewing this footage, and I'm like, oh my gosh, we did that, and it's like all these memories are flooding back to me. And we watched the first video all together the other night, and it was awesome. So if you're a Greg's World enthusiast, there will be content through these dark times. And I plan to like pick the camera back up again. I do not like being idle, and I felt like I was that way a lot this week. So I'm hoping that I can kind of get back into the routine of things. And I think it's just a matter of picking up the camera and sharing what I'm up to, even if it's just being at the house. I can show the boot life. That's what we could be living. No boot days. Zero boot. No, lots of boots days. I don't know. I'll figure it out as I go. But this footage and all of this content that I made will take us up until about the 17th of December. And then Clarkman's going to be off like the following week. And then we got Christmas and stuff. So there'll be lots of things happening then. And I feel like life will get a lot more interesting. But this week, being that I wasn't making any No Zero days and not editing those videos, which takes a lot of time, I found myself having a good amount of time to do other hobbies, including kind of getting back into the Lego scene, something that obviously I'm a big fan of and that I love to do. And this week I ended up getting into, actually doing a whole video on, and getting into a big Lego Technic set, the Lego BMW M1000RR motorcycle. Try saying that once. It kills me. Let me get a drink here. This is I guess probably my third or fourth large-scale Lego Technic set, and I felt like now was a good time for me to actually start building that, because I find Lego Technic building to be therapeutic. It's weird because it's very stressful, because you make a mistake on that, it's very hard to go back. So I find myself having to put all of my attention into it. and I'm not streaming it. I'm not making any content on it. I'm just sitting there working on it. And I just get kind of in the zone and get addicted to it. Like I was working on this for a while and I was like, oh, I should definitely go like put my foot up. Then I'm like, oh, let me just get this like situated here. And I'm like, well, I at least got to connect these pieces together. And then I'm like, well, let me just finish off this section. And then you get to a point where you get this satisfying moment. This is the perfect time to stop, is when all the gears and everything are in this. And then I had this piece and I started moving it a little bit, and all of the gears started turning the way that they should be turning. And I was just like, yes, the sense of accomplishment when you do something right. And I'm enjoying it thoroughly. So I got into that. I'm almost done with bag 1. There's only 5 bags in the entire set, and it's a big old motorcycle. So I'm excited to have it and have it on display. It's been something that I've wanted forever, and the deals popped up, so I ended up pulling the trigger on that. I also got some gift with purchases with that, including this old Lego castle set. It's not old though, because it's like a remastered or re-envisioning of a set from 1993, one that I didn't have, but I took the opportunity to build that this week too, and it took me down memory lane with the world of Lego castles, so that was a fun experience as well. So I've been having fun with building Lego, but I also did a little bit of gaming with Lego too. This week, Lego 2K Drive, which is a Lego racing game, sort of like Forza Horizon a little bit, became available on PlayStation Plus. So I played a little bit of that and I made a video about that as well. So where one channel kind of falls off, another channel kind of picks up, and it's a great time for it to happen again. Like if you're looking at the positive side of things, to have something like this happen to you in the wintertime instead of like June is such a good thing. So I've got lots to keep me busy. Sometimes I just feel guilty though when I'm laying on the couch, because I'm not the type to do that. I'm just laying on the couch watching videos, and I'm like, oh man, I didn't get anything like that. I don't have any accounting for my day today, but sometimes you can have downtime, and it's hard for me to learn that. It's completely against my nature. No 0 days is a lifestyle for me. And this week, man, I got totally into this YouTube rabbit hole that I'm finding so enjoyable but so encompassing. And that is the world of vintage and retro cameras and camcorders, specifically like Sony camcorders. Apparently there's like this renaissance in people buying these digicams from the early 2000s and these old camcorders and making like modern videos out of it. And I just been like so interested in all of these old cameras. Like as it stands, I spend all my time like looking for the newest and best thing, and like what's the best microphone I can use, can I get better audio, what's a good camera, what's the best lens, what's the best vlogging camera, how's the stabilization, does that lens go wide enough that I could film myself with that. Like I spend all my time in this, and then I start watching these videos of these people that get a camcorder from 1999 that still records to tapes, and they make like these really cool artsy videos out of it, and then like transfer that footage onto their computer and edit it up and stuff. And I'm just like, wow, that is so cool that you can do something like that with something that's currently like almost 25 years old, or even older in some cases. So I went hardcore down this rabbit hole of camera stuff. It's like my favorite type of content to watch outside of watching like Lego things. I just watch all kinds of camera and equipment videos, and YouTube apparently knows that, because the algorithm has served me well this week as I was on my downtime. We also watched some movies too, since I was just stuck on the couch for the most part. We watched some movies, and the one that we watched, well, I'll list them off, but I want to talk about one in particular. We watched The Fabelmans, which is actually a movie about Steven Spielberg. It's not quite an autobiography, but it was directed by him and written by him, and it's kind of about his life story and about his love of cameras and movie making and stuff. So that was right up my alley. We also watched The Terminal with Tom Hanks. I didn't realize that movie came out back in the early 2000s, so I was like, whoa, we somehow missed it. I do love Tom Hanks though. Well said. And then we watched one that was a high recommendation that I should have watched years ago. Ronnie, every single year at Thanksgiving, he's like, you got to watch Planes, Trains, and Automobiles. And I just have never done it. So when I was laid up, I was like, hey, let's watch this movie. And everybody was on board, and we had a good time with it. If you haven't seen it, it's John Candy and Steve Martin together. And they're trying to travel back home from is it New York to Chicago? They're trying to go or is it, yeah, New York to Chicago. And they run into every kind of setback you can ever imagine. And the movie very much reminds me of the dynamic from Tommy Boy, if you've ever seen that, where you have David Spade and you have Chris Farley doing their thing, and particularly the car segments, which had me laughing the hardest when he's driving the car the wrong way down the road. I won't do any spoilers, even though this movie is like from, I think, the 80s. I think 87, is that when it came out? But there's just so much wackiness, and he crashes the car. Obviously, the car sets on fire at one point, which had me cackling, and then they back the car into a hotel or a motel. The movie was good. It had me, I was anxious the whole time though. The movie's like very frustrating. Like if you've ever traveled, or if you can envision what traveling's like, and to do that in Steve Martin's shoes with this obnoxious other guy, and you keep crossing paths and you're just, all these setbacks is just so frustrating. But it was a good recommendation and a classic movie that I think was made. Is it made by the same guy that made Home Alone? Is that who made it? I don't know if I want to go on record saying that, but it had that vibe, you know. It even had like the Home Alone house that Steve Martin lived in. And I was like, is that the house from Home Alone? Yeah, I'm just gonna say it is. It's the same guy, I think, that made The Breakfast Club and all those classic '80s movies that are absolutely amazing. It was on that. So I'm sure Ronnie can fill me in on the details. But I watched it and I enjoyed it. But yeah, that was like my week, to be honest with you. It really did feel like a lost week, and I feel like I wasted a lot of time just kind of laid up on the couch with my foot up. But I did get some of my goals done, specifically in Lego, and I kind of brought that back, did a little bit of gaming. Clark has started playing the Lego Fortnite game, which I've been getting asked about a lot. It's almost like if you were to take Lego Worlds, Fortnite, and Minecraft and stir them in a pot. That's what this game is. It's like a survival game, and he's been playing that the last 2 mornings and having a blast with that. I don't know if it's necessarily for me, and I'm not even sure if Lego 2K Drive is for me. It definitely is, I think, trends towards a younger audience, but I had fun trying it out, and I enjoy seeing Clark Man just like really enjoying this game. But that was my week. It was probably my least productive week that I've had, gosh, ever, but I feel like I have a good excuse, although I'm not a big fan of excuses because you know what they say about excuses. They're like, and everyone has one, right? I'm not going there. Anyways, that's like pretty much all that I have for you this week in terms of new and exciting and what I've been into and up to. Just that, I guess. But we do have some listener feedback here, and in our very, I guess, condensed episode here, we'll get into Jenny Updike, who's been a longtime supporter. She says, sorry about your foot. She gave me some pro tips here. She said chocolate chip cookies have healing properties. I think I would like to test that, although I've been very cautious of what I've been eating this past week ever since this happened, because I'm like, well, I'm not really getting any steps in. I'm not going to the gym. I'm not exercising. So I need to keep my calories under what my like resting calories should be. And it's kind of worked out. I actually lost 2 pounds this week. Literally not doing anything. It's probably just my muscles atrophying from lack of use. But yeah, I could eat some chocolate chip cookies, particularly Cody's, because in my opinion, and I might be a little biased here, she makes the best chocolate chip cookies. It's like my favorite thing she makes, and that'll be coming up over Christmas. So I probably am putting my weight on. This is kind of derailing my fitness plans a little bit, but sometimes you just got to roll with the punches and the falls down the stairs when they happen. Jabbo, aka Bricksar, says, may your foot not become a weather radio later in life. He said, sadly, most injuries seem to come while doing the most mundane things. At least it was the stairs, not just getting out of bed or rolling over in bed. I love that. It made me laugh when I read that. I was thinking, though, Jabbo, about coming up with a more exciting story about my foot injury. I don't want to say that I just, I missed the last step and then like my foot went under itself and broke. I want to make this story up about how Roxy and I were out in the woods, and then like this giant wolf came and started attacking us. And for me to defend Roxy Bear, who was getting mauled by this giant wolf, I started kicking it repeatedly, and I kicked it to death. But then in the process of doing that, I broke my foot. So I'm kind of rolling with that one for a little bit just to see how that fits. But I think we all probably know the truth, and that's that I just missed the last step. But I kind of like the wolf story. I'm thinking maybe even making it like a werewolf, where it kind of like transformed from a wolf into a man, and then I was fighting it and kicking it, and then that's how my foot broke. So let me know if you think I should go full on werewolf, or if I should just keep it as like a wolf. But then it's like I'm kicking a dog, which I don't like that. So I'm thinking maybe it needs to be more like Cody and I were walking down the street to go to the movies with Clarkman, and all of a sudden these guys come out to rob us, and then I fought them and I kicked the one guy and broke my foot, and then he ran away and dropped his gun. I'm still working on the storyline. If you have a good storyline as to what happened to my foot, leave it as a comment in this video, and then I can read it next week, and we can have like a little contest on who has the best backstory as to what happened to my foot. Don't put falling down the stairs in it, though, because that's just not cool at all. Next one comes from Codex, who says, sorry to hear about your foot, Greg. You had such a positive attitude about it, healthy perspective, really, until this week when I went on my rant about the medical system, but I feel like that was well-deserved. He says, hope you heal quick. Get into some Skyrim. I'm contemplating it. Pick up Mario Wonder if you haven't. It's picked up, but it's not going to be delivered until Santa Claus drops it off on Christmas Day. He said, it's the best Mario game since 3, and I'm an 80s kid saying that. Enjoy working on your amusement park with Clark. You may be hurt, but you can still have no 0 days at home. That's the attitude to have right there. I should have recorded this week. I'm sure it's one of those things. It's just like missing pieces. Sometimes I sit down to this and I'm like, I've got nothing to talk about. My life's boring. Did nothing this week. Then I'm like, oh yeah, I did do something this week. And then I'm like, oh yeah. And then an hour later, I have this whole thing that I went into. No 0 days is kind of like that too. Sometimes just recording things. And I think that's the secret. Just get the camera out. Even if it's like a 1980s vintage Sony Handycam that runs on tapes. Looking on eBay, it could be that, and you can make something out of nothing. I think that is a good lesson from this. Thank you for that recommendation. I like that. Next one comes from Thomas, who is the reason that I have my Legoland stuff. He says, I recently finished Elden Ring. The story is there, but only becomes clear further in the game and requires also reading item descriptions to piece the story together. But the game is not story heavy at all. Anyway, nearly every day I played it ended with me saying, I never want to play it again, due to the frustration of unforgiving difficulty. However, I kept coming back to it due to the satisfaction one gets when managing to defeat the tough opponent. Now the game is one of the most memorable games I've played, and I'm an 80s kid like you. It's interesting that we've had 2 different comments here say that they're 80s kids back to back. I'm like, I don't know. I think I need to try it. Like I said, I watched my nephew kind of go through it. And for him, he was just blasting through the story because he had been through the game 7 times. He beat the game 7 times. That's how much he enjoyed it. And the funny story, the backstory on him playing the game is that his brother is the one that recommended it. And they were talking about playing it together in some way, which I'm not even sure if it has a co-op. I don't think it does. But he ended up getting the game, and then his brother backed out because he just wasn't into it. And then he got like super into it. And it seems to be that's the case with the game, is like you either love it or hate it. I haven't played any Elden Ring this week, but I do like Elden Ring versus Skyrim. I feel like Skyrim is more my jam in a lot of ways. Like I like the collecting in the game and building your character, which I think Elden Ring has a little bit of that as well, just in stats. But I'm also like a hoarder in the game, and I like looking around for stuff. And I don't know, I think it's more my style, but that doesn't mean that we can't give it a fair run and try both of them out and see what sticks. But I do want to bring my gaming channel back, and I was thinking that Skyrim playthrough, especially during these days and times when I can't do anything anyway, just put my foot up and do some gaming, I think could be just what the doctor ordered. And I didn't have to go to 3 different places over the course of a week to figure that out. Next one, I'm not bitter, you are. Next one comes from Brick OC. Thank you for all the comments so far though, guys and gals. Brick OC says, hey Greg, hope you and the family are well. Just wondering, you mentioned Cody was on some sort of travel site where you guys found the offer to the Camelback Resort. Just wondering what the website or app was. Thanks and have a great week. I'm glad you asked because I texted her about it this morning and she just texted me back. She said Travel Zoo is the place that she went to. She also asked me how I'm feeling, which I'm feeling good. I feel not bad. I would say I have more discomfort from wearing the boot that I'm wearing than my foot being broken. And outside of my foot being swollen, like walking on it really doesn't hurt like it did a week ago. So, like, had they not told me that I broke my foot, I would probably just be rolling on it, literally and figuratively rolling. I'd just be doing my thing. And it's probably good that I didn't do that. And Cody still thinks I'm an idiot for trying not to go get this looked at. Um, but I think wearing this boot is going to help it heal up much faster and properly. And I think maybe if I didn't go to the doctor and if I didn't get that advice and I just kept like living my life with my swollen foot, I think that bone probably would have never healed, or if it did, it would heal awkwardly and maybe create issues for me later in life, which I did ask the guy. I said, is this going to create any problems for me, like in the future, like in terms of my foot hurting or like walking, running, anything like that as I get older? And he said, no, it should be fine. Like he said, the body has like this amazing ability. Our bodies have a lot of amazing abilities, but like if the bones are anywhere near each other, they'll just kind of start fusing together and should fix themselves, which is pretty darn cool. So that's my long answer to your short question on I guess did I guess did you even ask? I don't guess you didn't even ask. He says thanks and have a great week. But I got your answer for the Camelback Travel Zoo. Next one comes from G Family. He says glad that Clarkman made a new buddy at school. We talked about that last week, where him and his buddy Logie are BFFs, and he went to his birthday party, and we have like similar families and stuff. They're still great friends. A week later, he says my son is turning 7 and has seemed to made 2 buddies so far this year. I'm not getting sappy, but it warms my heart to see friendships and eases my fears of the future. Having a small family and being that he's our only child, I hope he can build many friendships that last a lifetime. Sorry about the foot. Wishing you a speedy recovery. I'm the same way. I think anybody that has an only child, or if they don't have siblings, it's nice when they can make connections with other kids. Like as Clark has grown up here, I've been like his dad and his buddy, which I'm happy to do. It's not my job, it's my pleasure. And we have that connection, but I want him to connect with other kids, which is why I think school is so important. I want him to like be around other kids, for better or worse. And I want him to make connections with these kids and become friends and see what it's like to navigate friendships and to have to compromise when you're playing together, and seeing what other people are interested in and seeing how they act. And hopefully, like in this case, he's found a good friend, like a good one, but like not emulating what some of the bad kids are getting into and up to. I think that's the biggest fear going into like the adolescent age and like the teenage years is please don't fall into the wrong crowd. But I think that a lot can be done through parenting at home to maybe alleviate those worries. And I can imagine Clark doing that. He's a good kid, and I think he'll continue to be that. Next one comes from my buddy Ronnie, who's the recommendatior of new word of Planes, Trains, and Automobiles. He says, congrats to Clarkman on the awesome school news. Yes, it absolutely makes a huge difference. He's a former teacher and principal, by the way. He says, makes a huge difference having an amazing teacher. However, you and Cody need to pat yourselves in the back as well. Okay, I can still do that. He says, there are many kids right now who are behind because of the COVID years, but Clarkman is ahead in large part because of you and Cody's efforts at home during that time. A teacher plays a huge role, but the child's environment is absolutely paramount importance, and you guys are nailing it. Well, thank you. I've done my part in playing video games with him and building cool Lego stuff and running RC cars. But jokes aside, I do think there's a lot more to parenting than that, and we've taught him like what it's like to be hopefully a good human. I think that's like the number one goal. And if you had a checklist of things to do as a parent, teach your kid to be a good human, number one on the list. And I feel like we're doing a good job checking that off. Never ending battle, I'm sure. And I'm sure we'll have a lot more challenges as he gets older. Like right now, everything's easy. The drama is at a minimum. Those teenage years, though, I'll report back. Come back in episode, oh gosh, how many episodes will we be in if Clark's 13 years old? If we move ahead 4 years, 50 episodes, come back in like episode like 380, and I'll tell you some stories. I'll see you there. You better still be around. Next one comes from Jennifer. Says, talk to the teacher in school and see if they can make sure they give Clark a teacher next year to work with him and push him forward like the good teacher he has this year, not the bad one he had last year. To be honest with you, I think it's just luck of the draw. I'll tell you this story. Last year, when Clark was going in second grade, we went to orientation, open house, whatever it is, to find out who his teacher is and meet her. And as soon as we met her, I instantly knew that the year was going to be a disaster. Like the teacher, just even meeting her, like this year, I'll tell you what happened this year. I'll tell you what happened last year. This year we walk in, the teacher comes right over to us and she's like, "Oh, hi, what's your name?" And he's like, "Clark." And she like shook his hand, shook our hands, super personable, very nice, like awesome. Last year we walked in and we're like, "Hi, we're this is Clark." And she's like, "Oh, his desk's over there." And we're like, "Okay." And then I just remember like going over and getting his stuff. Like there was things on his desk that we needed to take with us. And then Cody trying to like make conversation with her or like ask her questions. It was just very short and like not personable at all. It was just like awkward and strange. And it was not the feeling you should get from an elementary school teacher, especially at those younger years where you're almost like a mother figure. I feel like you need to be more of a carer than a teacher at those ages. And it was just like a bad vibe. And I'll tell you this, when we were leaving there, I wanted to go to the principal and request a different teacher, but I knew that that wasn't going to happen because we actually tried that in kindergarten. We're friends with the daughter of one of the kindergarten teachers back in the day. She had retired since then, but we would requested that Clark had her because she's fantastic. And the principal got back to us and says, all of our teachers are good. He's going to get, it's just going to be a random selection. And Cody thinks that maybe we didn't get it because she's also a teacher and they didn't want to show favoritism. But I sometimes feel like parents can sometimes make things happen, just like in the way that I got my appointment on Friday instead of Tuesday. If the squeaky wheel gets the grease in some cases, and it seems as though, and this is kind of detrimental to the students, it seems as though the school will do whatever it takes to keep the parents happy and from complaining because that's like their customers essentially. And if it's a matter of raising a kid's grade up or doing whatever it takes, the principals seem to push for that, even if it's not deserved. But in this case, like we didn't get any special treatment, and I don't think she would have taken it kindly to this teacher switch. I should say the backstory on this teacher that Clark had last year, the one that was not a great teacher, being kind about it, and not a great first impression. She wasn't supposed to be a teacher. She was hired on as like a long-term sub type, like in case something happened. And literally right before school started, one of the teachers quit or got another job. So she got pushed into that role. And the really sad part of it is like, obviously she got that job out of necessity because it's like, well, we have all these students and like we need a teacher for them. And now they have this woman in there who maybe will get better over time. You can't judge someone for all eternity based off of like their first year or first day in teaching. But like she's going to be there teaching second graders for the next, could be 30 years. Like she's going to have a whole generation of kids that essentially lose a year under her. So I'm hoping that maybe she quits because it obviously doesn't seem like this should be like, this isn't her thing. Or if somebody gets on her, maybe a parent review is like, hey, listen, this lady is not what we had hoped for. And I'm not like, I hate to like make this all about hating on her, but it's so important. Like that's a whole year of a kid's life that I'm entrusting you like with my tax dollars. Like you're getting paid to be this kid's like teacher and to like push them. And that didn't happen. Like last year, it was a great time to travel because all of those weeks that we missed, Clark barely had any work at all. It was crazy. Like this year, Clark has, every day he comes home, he has reading to do. We have to sign off on the fact that he's doing this reading when he gets home. He has homework every night. We have spelling words that we see every single week and that we practice. There's like a listing of what they're learning throughout the week and that month. Last year, there was literally nothing. In fact, Clark didn't have any homework until Cody, like a month into school, was like, why isn't Clark having any homework? I'm getting a like on my video. Thank you guys. I don't know why that's popping up lately. Oh, now it paused. Son of a biscuit. That's like the second time this has happened on OBS for Mac where it puts up like this bubbled thumbs up and then it freezes my whole operation up. I have no idea why that happens, but it's very disheartening when I'm in the zone. What was I talking about? I was talking about the teacher and, the homework thing. Clark never had any homework last year until Cody emailed the teacher and was like, why doesn't Clark bring anything home? We don't know anything that he's working on in school or where he's at or anything. And then magically the next day he had homework and it like started from there. It's almost like it didn't even occur to the teacher that there should be homework, which I mean, I'm sorry, Clark, man, and all the other kids in the school, or in that class, but geez Louise, like, how could you be so bad at your job? But there's a teacher shortage in Pennsylvania, surprisingly, because teachers are paid pretty well here. And I think they just needed a warm body in there. So that was second grade. Third grade, amazing. I'm hoping fourth grade we can continue more of that amazing, because there are some really great teachers. And I'm not, this isn't to hate on teachers. It just shows you the power of having a good teacher or a bad teacher and where that can take you. So I'm hoping that through fourth, fifth, and sixth grade. And I think I might be the squeaky wheel next year. Like if we get into fourth grade and the teacher's not living up to expectations, I might go to the principal or even higher up if I need to and say, my son is at a level where he's beyond what they're teaching. He needs a teacher that can really push him forward. And I don't think that's happening here. So we'll worry about that and we'll cross that bridge when we get to it. But for now in third grade, Clark is excelling and it's good to see. Next one comes from Janelle. She says, glad you guys had a good Thanksgiving. Sorry about your foot. Great job, Clark, in all your studies. She says, I'm glad Clark has a buddy to hang out with. Good teachers make all the difference. Agreed. And she says, sorry, I'm 4 days late watching this. We're traveling. Hey, you could watch or listen to this anytime you want. These episodes are out for anybody and anyone to listen to. So even if you're 2 years behind, you could speed run my entire life over the next 2 years and get caught up on everything, which is, it's kind of wild to think about, really, but it's all here for the taking. Next one comes from DB Bricks, who says, I'm sure most of the comments will say the same thing, but I'm sorry to hear about your injury, Greg. The only injury I've ever had was also a foot injury sustained while playing rugby at school. The teacher decided, this is a fun story. He says, the teacher decided it'd be a wise idea to have two of us demonstrate good tackling and chose me, a small, thin, weenie kid, to be tackled by the 6 foot, 12 stone or 170 pound 13-year-old. I went down awkwardly on my foot, and needless to say, a rolled ankle plus 170 pounds of weight on it equals a lot of pain. He says, I still remember going down in agony during the running drill we were put through, and the teacher just going, David, get back up and run it off for goodness sake. I didn't do that and instead hobbled home after having to sit through a couple more lessons, waited for my dad to finish work and come home, where finally, about 4 hours after it happened, I finally went to the hospital where, ironically, my mom worked at the time. They did their tests and it turned out it was just a sprain, albeit a fairly bad one, that did at least keep me out of rugby for a few weeks. I was actually a bit disappointed I didn't have to get the boot or crutches. The same school, I forgot to tell that part of the story. Thank you for the reminder. After I got my boot, I went and got crutches, but I found that they didn't, I'm not very good with them. I've used them a few times around the house when my calf was really sore from wearing the boot. But man, I feel like I get around a lot better on my boot than on crutches. So I kind of just let those go. Plus, it doesn't really hurt when I'm walking on my boot. It's just awkward. So I thought I would share that and sneak it into your comment here. DB, sorry about that. Or David. He says, the same school also pushed for me to attend after school classes for higher grades, as I was doing really well at the start of secondary school, 11, 12 years old. But it turned out these extra classes were just teachers putting on a VHS for us to watch and learn from. Sounds like remote learning is what Clark was doing in kindergarten. He says, and did absolutely nothing for my weak points, which were revising and exams. I would just crumble under the pressure of having to remember absolutely everything for 1 3-hour exam, and extra things we were given to learn in the after-school classes probably did my grades more harm than good. Thankfully, it sounds like Clark's teacher has a far better grasp of exactly where he is at this stage than mine ever did, and starting him off on setting further goals at a much younger age should hopefully prepare him much better for his later school years. Great to hear, though, that he's doing well so far. Yes. Doing well in school. It really is crazy how much of an impact school can have on you, to the good and the bad. And also, I guess your coaches and phys ed teachers, walk it off, boy. You're like, sir, I have a broken leg. He's like, you're fine. Just run a lap. Terrible. Next one comes from Rachel. She says, hey, Greg, hope you're feeling a little better. Thank you guys for the well wishes. He says, I've never broken a bone, so I couldn't imagine. About the Pokemon cards at school, my son's school also doesn't let kids bring Pokemon. He even made a special call to all the teachers about it because it must have gotten out of hand, but they always try to sneak them in like Clark. I totally understand the reasoning around it. Yeah, that's one conversation we had last week about the Pokemon cards at school and how that can be detrimental. And other toys too. I also feel the same way about criticism on people's videos. I live by, if you don't have anything nice to say, don't say anything at all. Great podcast. Can't wait to listen next week. Agreed. So don't hate on my video here, please. Next one and last one comes from Samuel. It says, greetings, Greg. I'm so proud of Clark Man for his excelling performance in school. He's an awesome kid to be reckoned with. His reward of Aquatopia looked and sounded like a blast. Also, I'm proud of you for reaching your goal and having a clean studio ready to go for your nephews. It looks like that space was put to good use over Thanksgiving. I wish I could say my space was clean, not just in clutter, but also dust. Hey, I'm still there with you, brother. He says also, the timing on the foot brake was amazing. While no one wants to have an injury, it's always better when you don't have to worry about upcoming activities. That's all I have to say, so I'll see you in the next Missing Pieces, which is exactly what I say. But before I do that, I need to shout out Ray. Ray is a huge supporter of the channel, leaves a nice comment every single week. Usually he covers every single thing. So I want to shout out Ray. I don't know if I did this last week, but Ray, I appreciate all of your comments on all of our videos and all of the support. Also, I should say this too, from Ray to you guys. He has some Brickfest live tickets for the Nashville Brickfest, which is happening on, I think, January 6th and 7th of 2024. And he got 3 tickets for that he was going to give to us, but unfortunately we can't make it during that time. Not only because of the boot, but also because it's like right after the holidays and Clarkman has to go back to school and Cody does too. So it's just a hectic time. But he was willing to give those away to anyone that watches or listens to our content if someone could use them or want them. So just let me know. You can leave a comment in this video if that's something that you could use. If you're in the Nashville area or can make it to Nashville in early January. Again, not super great timing because I know everyone's like doing crazy stuff over the holidays. But if somebody could use those tickets, that would be awesome. And then I'm sure it would make Ray really happy too. So Ray, thank you for, I guess, being a sponsor and supporter of the channel and always having very kind things to say and very extensive comments that I get to read and like get encouraged by every single week. Which, speaking of encouraging, hope this was encouraging to you, even though it was just a lot of me just complaining about the inefficiency of the medical system. Maybe we can make some changes and maybe someday it'll be better. But I think the most important thing is trying to serve people in the way that you would want to be served. And that's what I try to do here on Missing Pieces. I hope you enjoyed listening to this each week and you get some type of value out of it. And it gives you a little something to, the word that I see most commonly is escape from. It gives you a little bit of escape or something to listen to while you're doing something else that is more mundane than listening to me talk for an hour. So on that, I hope you have a great week and I will report back and we'll find you in the next Missing Pieces episode.